things that I was not thinking about when I was in my 30s, right? I was just worried about 40.
Yeah, you're inevitable. Like, or what's it called when you like have prolonged life and you don't think about that stuff.
I can't think of it.
That's not inevitable.
I know. That's why I was like, wait, that's not the right word.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, maybe it's my brain.
Yeah. So
it's inevitable that you can't remember this.
Yeah.
I know, right? It must be that perimenopause.
which is a thing, right? Going back to qualifying. So anyhow, just with that, just some considerations to think about here. First off, as you're getting older, you're probably noticing some things, even if you're in your 40s, 30s, or 40s for that matter, and that things are working or operating a little differently than they did, 10 years previously, right? Whatever it is. But again, as those years tend to trickle by, some things come up. One is if you're not consistently strength training, right, muscle mass tends to erode, right, for lack of a better term. And that's generally due to less activity and certainly less stress on the system with regard to the activity that you're doing. And so muscle mass tends to drop. Why? Because of that, because less activity. The other thing that happens is our diets tend to change a little bit. The other thing that happens is our hormonal balance starts to change a little bit. I mean, you mentioned that word, menopause. There's kind of that, the colloquial term for when that happens with men is called menopause, right? As things start to kind of slow down a little bit. We're producing less testosterone. Same with women. They go through the same thing. It starts to become a hormonal imbalance when we start to look at things. When I say imbalance, it's a natural thing that process that happens, but it creates these things. So those are considerations. While all that's happening, there's other considerations to think about, like your tissue starts to change a little bit. It's not as resilient, right? It doesn't slide and glide the same way it does, right? Or it did at one point and that's likely due to a lack of activity, right? You're just not moving those things. So it starts to get comfortable. Those rubber bands, if you will, get tight. Well, when the rubber bands get tight, then the joints aren't moving the way they should be moving, right? So start to feel a little bit of joint pain. And that can be a real limitation, right? As you get older, ask me how I know, both from acute and cumulative stuff.
I was just going to say the cumulative effect of just aging, right?
So there's the cumulative effect of the stress you're putting on your body through exercise or your outside activity or whatever you're doing. There's the cumulative effect of all the things we just mentioned that kind of are a natural process. And then there's the acute things or baggage that you're bringing along, and I've got plenty of those. Accidents, falling down, being dumb, all kinds of stuff, right? That kind of stacks. And so when we're looking at, things like joints and muscles, they're not functioning quite the same as they did. If you've done a really good job, they're even probably not working as well as they were 10 years prior.
Well, and that's like a really vicious cycle to fall into at any age, but especially in this age range where you start to notice those things more of if you get into this point of inactivity for long enough where you're feeling stiff and achy because you're inactive so that you can't really be active, but it's making you more stiff and achy because you're not active enough. And then when you do try to be active, maybe it's not the right thing for you, right amount, and then it makes you more stiff and achy. So it's really like hard to find and build this kind of momentum, especially if you're like restarting this journey at this age, or you've had like a really high training status and you're trying to kind of maintain things. This balance of like recovery and movement, tissue quality, and all these things. This cycle, it's a hard thing to get yourself out of if you don't have a good game plan. So.
Yeah, and then having the patience with it as well, right?
For sure, that's the biggest.
Because everybody wants to go from 0 to 100, and you can't necessarily go 0 to 100 as you start to get older.
Especially if that begins to have a psychological and emotional effect too. Sure. I mean, being in pain at any level or just being in any level of discomfort that limits you from doing the things you need or want to do can really take its toll. And especially on the people that were highly driven before and know what a really like great level of fitness feels like for them. And so they know how far away they are from it. Yeah. Sometimes it gets a little exaggerated, but gets in the dome. It's like, why can't I do this? I should be able to do this. I promised myself I wouldn't be this old man, kind of thing. And, and it shows up in places in life that you don't want it to. I was talking to one of my clients the other day had a 2-week vacation, got a bunch of family, lives on the East Coast, and they were out there and got to spend time. And he does a really good job of taking care of himself. And he was out there. He's like, I was on the beach with the kids. He's got grandkids running around, chasing them, playing in the sand or whatever. He goes, I woke up the next day, my feet were really sore, right? And I had muscle soreness in areas, but it felt like I'd kind of worked out a little bit, not joint pain, not like debilitating pain. It was that because he also understands what that feels like. Yeah. So, but it showed up for him there in a good way, right? And I think that's the thing that people lose track of too, is they're maybe expecting like a physical result that they may be used to, but they're not paying attention to where their fitness shows up for them later in life, and again, going back to like the clients that we have here, we have several clients who are, married, right? Like couples that are married, and they, one's more active than the other. Mm-hmm. And that other is starting to recognize, like, I'm having a tough time keeping up on the things that we used to do. Mm-hmm. And that's scaring me. Like, I don't want that. Like, and then things start to creep in. They're like, shit, I'm getting old, and shit, I'm, how many years do I have left? So people are doing math and things like that. So it can be, I say all that to say on the psychological and emotional thing, and how that drives decision-making about your exercise. Yeah.
And we talked about like the psychological component of like feeling, one, being in pain or feeling inadequate. And, I think that people use that term a lot of like, oh, I'm getting old. When really, yes, you need to be more intentional as you're older, but a lot of those things, the things you're feeling are from a lot of that inactivity. But that can really like bleed into, you just talked about it, like in a relationship, like how you are as a parent, how you are as a grandparent. Like one, if you're in chronic pain, like people who are dealing with that, they're a lot of times very irritable. They're very short. They're not showing up for their family, let alone being able to like a quality of being able to do active things. Like that's a whole other level of being able to participate in your life with your kids, with your spouse, that a lot of people take for granted. And so I think that's when the goals start to shift a lot as you get into your 50s of really trying to maintain quality of life with your family, with your loved ones, still being able to do the things you love, to whatever degree that is, whether it's, hey, I still want to be able to get on the slopes. I still want to be able to go play on the beach with my grandkids. Like the values that people, put their time into, like that's really where it shifts. And that's where your training may need to shift, because that's your value point now. It's not where even in your 40s, people are still trying to chase like performative goals, or like they really still want that 6-pack on the beach. That would be a cool thing, right? When you go into your 50s, it's more like, I want good quality of life. I want to not be in pain so I can show up for my family, those people around me. And like, that's the direction that things really need to shift. And that's going to look different in how you're training. It really is.